Okay, you guys may not know this, but in the 1980s, submarines are cool. And don't get me wrong, submarines are still cool. I still love submarines. But in the 1980s, submarines were like mega cool. Like you kinda couldn't even touch them. The decade itself was kinda sandwiched between two just fantastic submarine movies even. The early 80s had Das Boot, the German classic. And then the late 80s, early 90s had Hunt for Red October. 1980s was the submarine's decade. That brings us to Sega's third game for the SG-1000 and the final Vic Dual game that we're going to look at. It's called N-Sub. It seems very fitting to me that a 1980s game that's very much in the classic Atari, just crank up that high score type of gameplay, is a submarine game. It totally just brings back a whole bunch of nostalgia for me for the decade. And honestly, the game does not disappoint either. The game is really good. I love shooters, especially early shooters, but there was a point where I wasn't a big fan. I'll be honest, I can't really get into Space Invaders. There's just something about that's a little too simplistic until you kind of get to the end, and it boils down to taking out that last guy, and that's not very fun to me. N-Sub is kind of that very next generation. It's not quite Galaxian, but it's definitely that next step up there. And it's fantastic. It has a few gimmicks where you've only got the bottom half of the screen that you can go to. The top half is kind of the sky or just kind of top of the water where you're kind of seeing the ships. And your submarine can't go there. It can only stay deeper under the water. So you're shooting everything that's above you as they're shooting down, just like in all of the Space Invaders games. Although instead of coming down closer and closer to you, the danger that you have on your level, your depth of the water, are other enemy subs. I love this about the game, because it's not just the classic Space Invaders or Galaxian where they're just coming down. Galaxian kind of threw in this little bit of a difference by having the ships actually dive bomb at you. But N-Sub has things coming in at the side. This threw me off guard. And not only that, but it also changed the paradigm. I didn't even realize playing this game that it kind of had two buttons. I just assumed that you could only fire up. It was only later that I realized you can fire to the side. And I don't think it's just me kind of going in and only using one button. I went in expecting only one button. But this game kind of broke the paradigm and the expectations that I had of early shooters. And it creates a really nice strategy. The strategy that kind of comes into it are most of the enemies that come in are in fleets. You want to knock out the fleets for the huge bonus. But it is really tough to knock out those fleets when you've got submarines coming at you. So here's what you do. It comes to a point where you're going to have two submarines underwater. You take out one of them, the second submarine will not respawn until either you take out all the submarines underneath or it goes off the screen. So take out one of them immediately. The other one is easy to avoid, and then you can just start taking out fleets, racking up those bonuses. This doesn't seem to be a very well-known strategy, and not just because it's hard to come by, it's actually a very simple strategy in my opinion, but the game sadly just is not well known. I went to Twin Galaxies just for the hell of it, just to kind of see what was out there. Just using this strategy, you can blow away the high score that's on it. Now granted, on Twin Galaxies, it's a MAME version and not the SG-1000 version, but still, I definitely think that they're not that different. I played the arcade version a little bit on MAME, they're not that different. And I bring that up just to really bring home the point of just how forgotten this game is. Whenever I got on Twin Galaxies, it had about 5 scores on it. That's really sad, because this game is not just a hidden gem for the SG-1000 or Sega, I honestly think it's a hidden gem for gaming, at least shooters. If you like shooters, you like Galaxian, or even the newer stuff, check out this game. If nothing else, it is a fantastic piece of history. This game, N-Sub, I will easily put in the top 10 SG-1000 games. If you pick up an SG-1000 and you're looking for games, pick this one up. I think the big defining part of the SG-1000, the defining genre, is a shooter, and this is one of the games that makes it so.